Welcome back to Total Focus Podcast. I'm your host, Paul. Our special guest this week is the National MRS Captivating 2020. Janet Rayburn is on the show. I'm so excited to have her. The Captivating Pageant is celebrating 10 years, so we're going to learn more about the Captivating title, her system, everything. We're going to learn more about Janet. So please stay tuned. I hope you guys are so excited for this episode, just like I am. Our sponsor of the week is Mid-Atlantic Video and Photography Production. No matter if you need photos or video, they are the team to get the photo and photography job done. No matter if you need photos for a wedding, special event, or professional headshots, they are the photographers to get the job done. And no matter if you need a wedding videography, a commercial, or some video for a project, they are the videographers to get the job done. So no matter if you're looking for photography or video, they are the team to get the job done at Mid-Atlantic Video and Photography Production. And welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Paul, for the opportunity to be on your show.
Oh, it's always a pleasure to have some new people on the show, that a new system that I'm not aware of. I would love for you to tell more about your system and your title, and honestly, your system could be years and years old, but I honestly don't know more, and I feel so foolish not to know more. So why don't you tell me more about your system starting out, and then we can talk about how you got into pageantry and how you eventually got to your title.
Sure. Our system has actually only been around for about 10 years.
Okay.
And we're going to be celebrating our 10-year anniversary
That's
this
exciting.
year. Yeah, it is very exciting. In our system, it has 4 divisions. It has the junior teen. It has the teen, the miss, the Ms., and Mrs. When it first started, it did have the junior teen, but this year is the first year we're cutting out the youngest division. So we're down to 4 divisions. And what's nice about this pageantry is it's really not any particular qualifications. So you don't have to be a certain size or anything. You can be who you are. The system platform is all about being you, being different, and being captivating. And so that's one of the big draws for me, is I feel like when I enter a system like this, I get to meet all sorts of people coming from diverse background, different times in their life, and just different looks, So I appreciate being part of that type of sisterhood.
Well, yeah, I appreciate any organization that promotes, unity and the whole system than you having to fit into a mold that some person in a board elected to be the mold. So that's really much more enlightening, and it's the way most systems should be, if not all. So that's really great that there's a system like yours out there that's really being out there and promoting and being in the forefront. So I appreciate you guys doing that. And is it clearly, by celebrating 10 years, you guys are doing something right there?
Yeah, so we're really excited about it. And another title that I forgot to mention, it's a special title that doesn't get offered every year. It's based on the candidates who are competing that year, and it's the ambassador title. So within that year, if there are candidates who actually didn't win a division title, such as the teen, the Ms., the Miss, and Mrs., but they have put a lot of effort into promoting the system and just an overall very well-rounded person that we want to represent our system, then at the very end of the pageant competition, we actually will award one person as the captivating ambassador. And we have one this year. So our 5th sister queen is a captivating ambassador, and hopefully we'll be able to give that same title to somebody at this year's pageant.
I do like that idea when pageants do that, because it's so competitive for some people, especially with it being an individual sport, and you put so much effort into winning that crown, and to be able to spotlight that person that finishes second, or someone that may have not made it to the top 5 but bleeds the organization, so much. That's really important to highlight that person. So I think that's just a good fundamental thought from the organization to do that. That's really smart, and that's probably a great way to keep contestants coming back and forth. Is build that brand loyalty.
Right, right. And with me right now doing a lot of marketing just for my work, like I think that's a fantastic idea
Oh,
to build
absolutely.
that brand, yeah, build that brand loyalty there.
So specifically for yourself, how did you fall into pageantry? Were you always pursuing pageantry as a young child, or were you pursuing other aspects like music or sports, or was this something that you found later in life?
So that's an interesting question. So growing up, my background, I'm Vietnamese. So my parents and grandparents came over in 1975, right after the Vietnam War, basically at the end of the Vietnam War. So they came over with nothing. So as a child, I was born in the States. I was actually born in Arkansas. And I remember growing up as a young child, the only thing on cable television at the time was that was very exciting was pageantry. And the system that I used to watch was the Miss USA pageant. And I would watch and I would always envy, like, how do you get to that point to compete? But unfortunate for me, we were a very low income family. So pageantry was never in the picture. And I really love my McDonald's. So I was a little chubby girl. So as a child, I never competed in pageantry, even though I love watching it with my grandfather. And it wasn't until probably in my 30s, Paul, that pageantry came into my life. So in 2015 was the very first year I competed, and I competed as a Mrs. And so somebody mentioned to me before, because I started getting into fitness competitions. And right after I competed in my first NPC fitness competition, someone said, "Well, have you thought about doing pageantry?" And at the time, I didn't realize that there were pageants out there for married women. And so somebody introduced me to the system. And one of the first systems that I competed in was the Mrs. Captivating, which is the system that I'm in right now. And in 2015, I got first runner up. I was a complete newbie to the pageantry system. And I fell in love
Well,
with
that's a
this.
pretty big achievement. The first time up, getting first runner up, that's a pretty big achievement.
Yeah. And
And
I
and
fell in
and
love.
had
Go
you
ahead.
competed a lot doing NPC? Did you have a lot of stage presence? Had
And
you done a lot of those competitions already? So
actually, no. In
no, okay.
2014, the year before I competed in my first pageant, was my first NPC fitness competition.
So that you
So,
didn't have something to draw upon from NPC either. So
no.
so you just really you just gave your all, and it really showed off then.
It is, yeah. And so I remember talking to a pageant coach for the first time, preparing myself for the pageant. And the pageant coach would say, "Your walk is really bouncy." And I said, "Well, my walk is from my fitness competition. That's how they taught me how to walk." So I had to relearn my walk for pageantry because it's a lot more graceful on stage. It's a different style of walking. But that's how I got into pageantry, was in 2015, was trying something new. And I thought it was it's a one time done for me. And so after that, once you get connected into the pageant system, a lot of people get to know you. And there's been a lot of pageant system that asked me to go judge, and I even got to judge in Colorado in between. So I told myself, if I ever were to return to pageant system, I would go back to the captivating pageant. And so in 2019, 4 years after I competed in one of my first pageants, I came back to the captivating system and won the National Mrs. Captivating 2020 title.
Well, that's really exciting that basically put all your skills together and came home and won your home pageant. Um, is that how you feel? Like, do you feel like you came home and you won that home pageant because you did so well that first time?
Yeah, I it was the reason I wanted to go back to this pageantry was, what I love about the system is the sisterhood. So it's not like when you win a title and you're kind of the sole winner for that system. This system has four different categories. So I knew that if I were to win the system, I have three other sisters and an ambassador that becomes my sisterhood to help me, run with our title and promote the system as a team. And so that's what's exciting about this, is now I feel like I have four, pageant sisters that are going to be part of my sisterhood in life for the rest of my life.
Does this sisterhood, are you guys innately very tight? So I know sometimes um, they're so competitive. There isn't as great sisterhood. Is there a great sisterhood between the competitors and also people that win that you guys can build friendships really well?
Yes, I think on both sides, with people I competed with, like I said, because the system isn't about, a certain height, a certain look. There's so many different women that would might not have normally were able to compete in other system comes to this system, and immediately becomes that positive energy, that sisterhood about all. Let's just promote our platform and come to compete together to win this title. So even after I won this title, I've still kept in touch with some of the pageant sisters who I competed with, and they're actually returning this year to compete in it. So hopefully I'll get to crown one of them this year. So that's exciting.
That
And
is
then,
that is
yeah,
exciting. Do you what are they doing based on the situation? Are they doing a virtual pageant or are they doing an in person pageant?
that's a really good question because for a period of time we weren't sure with everything that's happening if we have to go virtual. But we are actually doing a live pageant. There's
Okay.
going to be different guidelines around social distancing, some changes, but we're going to try to still give all the contestants a good experience overall. And it will be very similar format as it was in previous years, with, of course, certain guidelines that we're going to have to follow to keep everyone safe.
Of course. It's one of the shame part about doing a virtual pageant is that the girls don't get that big applause when they win their title.
Yeah.
That's like the biggest thing that um, I feel so bad for the girls because you guys work so hard and um, I think that's I don't I maybe I'm just speaking for you or speaking out of place, but you work. I think you work more for that applause for the title than the putting on the sash. Because am I wrong or am I or do you feel that you work really hard for that crown sash moment? Because
Well, yeah, I think the instant gratification is definitely the applause. The greatest feeling is having your friends and family out there supporting you. So whether or not you walk away with a crown or sash, just knowing that you have that audience that's there to cheer you on and empower you to reach the goal of even competing is such an incredible memory. So, the icing on top is if you do win, that's something that you take forward and able to spread your platform on it. But I do agree with you that having people out there cheering for you empowers you to if you don't win to even come back and better yourself for the next time.
oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's always a challenge. I think that's one of the things I love about pageants for women specifically, is that it's a it's a sport that allows women to challenge themselves specifically without having men involving themselves. It's an item where women can actually be themselves and challenge themselves without any male influences, which is so important because we have so many competitions where men try to influence themselves. And it's really
Mhm.
nice to see that there is a really awesome competition where women can actually be themselves and have no influence, which is so important. Um,
Yeah, and
go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say you bring up a really good point there. I think the misconception a lot of times people who don't know about pageantry, they think pageantry is all about looks, and that's not true. Especially in our pageant system, what it coach and builds. That's why people ask me, would you have young girls compete in pageantry? I would say yes because it does build communications. It helps you. I mean, when you go in to do pageant interviews, it gives you practice to later on, especially for young girls when they go and they interview for colleges or when they interview for a career. It builds that strong communication and it helps them learn how to network with each other, which are the two keys to having a successful career in the future.
I absolutely agree with you. It's very rare that I run into a pageant contestant that can't excel in the interview room, even if she's a newbie. They've really worked hard to impress that person. I think that naturally flows into a job interview or just trying to impress someone in the sales department and really up their game. So I think that doing a pageant can only be a positive experience, even if it does draw in some kind of competition aspect into it. So I'm really curious to know about the NPC portion. So if that was your original foray into competition, how did that play a role in it? And to, what drew you into doing NPC competitions? You had mentioned um, off the cuff that you enjoyed. I think you said McDonald's. So
Yes.
and that's not. There's nothing wrong with that. I know I'm a very chubby guy, and I love my fast food too. So and I've lost weight and I've gained weight and lost weight. So what was the defining factor that made you want to do NBC fitness competitions? I know some of my
Yeah.
listeners, I haven't had the pleasure of interviewing a lot of fitness competition competitors. So, what are some of the correlation that wanted you to do that? Because that is a very specific, dedicated aspect there, and you have to get to a certain body weight, and you have to
Yep.
really train yourself and mindset and all these things that go into it. I think it's more intense than a pageantry, you have to take off a much majority of your clothes and segregate it in front of men and women. So I
Yes.
would say it's definitely much more stressful than a pageant. Am I
It
wrong?
is.
What do you think?
No, you're completely right. And especially being that NPC was my first on stage type of competition.
Wow.
So it was funny that you mentioned McDonald's because I kid you not, at the age of 5, I could eat 2 Big Macs. And so growing up, I was pretty heavy. And then after I got married, I was probably at the heaviest point in my life. And I remember looking into the mirror one day, and I was depressed away how I felt inside and how I felt outside. And so the only person that could change, I knew, was me. I can't, nobody else can help me with this but myself, and mentally getting myself in that space. And so I started out with a fitness goal of losing the weight and getting to a healthier weight. And so I hired a trainer. Was on a diet plan, workout routine, and I lost 25 pounds in about 6 months that first
That's
time.
awesome. That's a great 25 in 6 months. That's not too quick. That's not too that's a good
Yep.
amount. So you can keep that off forever. So that's really good.
Right. Because I wanted to go into something that's sustainable and not
Yeah,
any
absolutely.
type of crash diet. Yep. And so after that, I showed up to the gym one day, and I saw a group of women in high heels and bikini walking around the gym. And in me, I was like, what is going on? Why are they dressed like that? And why are they in heels? So my trainer said to me, oh, these girls are getting ready. They're doing their preparation on their poses because they're competing this Saturday for the NPC. And so I was intrigued, and I'm like, well, what is this? Like, how do I get involved? How do I get into this? And he said, anybody can do it. You just have to have a very strong discipline on your diet and a very strict routine on workout. And he says, if you want to do this, I will train you. And he's like, to motivate you even more, if you are willing to commit to this, he said that he will also compete with me. Because my coach was a former bodybuilder, a former champion bodybuilder. And so because of his age, he stopped competing for the last several years. But that was so motivating to me that I know that if I'm going to commit to this, my coach will also commit with me and compete with me. So he would compete in the men's bodybuilding while I'll do the women's bikini competition.
I think that's an awesome I would say that's an awesome deal because I always feel like when someone is training you, they want you to do all that work, but for him to say, I'll put in the hard work and then I'll make sure that I make my qualification for my age range. Um,
Hmm.
that's incredible. So that was a huge gamble for him to do that as well. As if you're saying that he took several years off, so he definitely
Yeah.
sounds like he motivated himself as well as you.
Yeah. It was a huge support. Not only that, his girlfriend also signed up. So the three of us became each other's support system.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so for 2 years, Paul, it took me 2 years
Oh yeah, of
to get
course.
to,
And yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
to get myself. I dropped another 25 pounds. I was in the really, best shape for the competition because I wanted to make sure that my first package delivered on stage, no matter if I win or not, I know mentally that that's the best package I was going to bring on stage. And so for several many months, I've had nightmares of, like, terrified being on stage, not posing correctly, or being not the right body for it. And so when it finally came down to that competition day, it was actually a very surreal moment, because 2 years of training, but going back to when I was a child, of never thinking that I could do something like this, because I always grew up heavy, always accepting where I was at, and being able to get to that point, get on stage in a tiny bikini, being judged on your body by judges, both men and women, and then walking away with fourth place was an incredible
For
journey
your
for me.
first time, you got fourth place.
I
You
did. I
you
did.
that's awesome. Like I don't think our listeners know how hard that is to, like, you placed, and like that's incredible. So kudos. And for because you basically came from a situation where you weren't in that fitness mindset. So for you to in 2 years go from a non-fitness mindset, I assume you were
Right.
working out, but really dedicating yourself, and then in 2 years you transfer your body into that's congratulations. That's awesome, because I know how
Thank
hard
you.
that is. So,
It was very hard, and I had very supportive friends, because when you do NPC, your social life goes out the window.
oh yeah,
Um,
exactly. Mhm.
yeah, because you're always in the gym training,
Right,
and you're
2 days,
always
two
eating.
days a week. I mean, 2 day, not 2 days a week. 2 days, 2 days,
Two
two
times a
times a
day.
day, 2 times a day.
Yes. Yep. You're exactly right. Two
And then you
times a
have to.
day.
Now, were you doing the jug of water as
Yep.
well?
Yeah, everywhere I went, I had my jug of water with me. I had to do a gallon of water. And then I was on a very, very strict diet. And with my job at the time, I did a lot of traveling, which makes it even
Oh
harder.
wow.
So I would pre-pack all my meals. And even at conference, when everybody's eating their conference meal, I would pull out my little meal prep and eat it while everybody else was eating their, delicious, um, fatty food with dessert and like a drink. And here I am in my chicken and broccoli.
Now, looking at your pageant prep, that must be like you must be feeling like you have so much food to eat, because in comparison, um, pageant prep must be so easy for you, because going back to the MPC prep is 10 times harder.
Yeah, yeah. So that was interesting, because, NPC, for those who compete in fitness, can all relate that after a competition, you can't sustain that
Right.
really low body fat percentage. So
You get
people
sick.
tend to
Yeah,
gain,
so you weren't.
yeah, yeah. So people tend to gain a little bit of body fat back. And so from fitness competition in 2014 to the 2015, I gained a little weight back. And the coach that I got for the pageant competition, she was telling me, oh, do you think about doing, like, body wrap, or doing all sorts of these different things that some of the pageant girls would do? And I said, you know what? As far as when it comes to losing weight, give me 8 weeks. I've done fitness competition. I know how to get down to the size I need to through just regular proper eating and nutrition and workout. I don't need to do all the other type of gimmicks or supplements, any of that stuff. Just give me 8 weeks. And by the time that I was competing in a pageant, my pageant coach says, I've never met a pageant girl who can lose the weight the way that you do with just, proper eating and diet. And I said, I know what I'm doing because I've done fitness competition.
It's incredible when you know your body, and you know how your body functions, and you understand what nutrients you need to take in to lose weight. So it's um, when you figure out the magic formula for yourself, you can lose or gain weight very easily. So,
Right, right.
do you feel that you're at this point in your life where you can stay at this weight and be very happy, or do you feel like maybe like 10 more pounds would be a more comfortable weight and for the rest of your life, or or do you think that you need to be lighter? Where do you feel like you are now?
Um, I feel like the weight that I'm at now, I'm comfortable in it. And I think I know, like, depending what competitions I want to do in the future, whether it's pageantry or fitness competition, I know how to get to where I need for that. But as far as just maintaining kind of a day to day stable weight that is sustainable, I think I'm there. And so just preparing myself for the next competition. And I turn 40 next year. And my goal is to actually compete again in another fitness competition
Well, I
in my
hope you
30s.
do. I really do encourage you to. So,
Because then it puts me at what they call the master level. It's in fitness competition. It's a lot of times for women. It's by age group, and so the older you are, the harder it is to get yourself in that type of body type. And so that's going to be able to push me to that next limit again. And so I'm always trying to get myself to try these different things because it challenges me and gives me continuous improvement on both my mental capacity and my physical capacity.
are you do you seek out challenges where you need to be poked or someone needs to motivate you, or do you get personally motivated?
I'm a person that's always been driven by myself, personally motivated. And even in my career, I just recently took a new position, and I'm actually going to be moving in Texas next month as the VP of engineering because my ultimate goal is to be a female CEO.
Do you have an industry that you want to represent and work in? If you want to,
So yeah. So currently I'm in the electric industry, and that's where I've started my career, over 15 years ago with that. And that's the industry that I've always loved. And I want to continue to be part of that industry. I can see myself retiring in that industry, years later.
well, I mean, I see so much growth in the electric industry. I mean, solar panels, wind,
Hmm.
battery grid devices. I mean, and then you're going to need services, wires, all this kind of infrastructure. So it's not an industry that industry is growing, tenfold, 20-fold. So there's so much opportunity there. It's a great industry to be a part of. So if you love that type of industry and you can really understand it very well, you're going to do really successfully. That's for sure. And
Yeah, and I like to push the norm of, that industry is usually more male dominated.
mhm.
And being a female in that industry and a female that can excel in that industry is a whole new opportunity and challenge for me that I'm excited about. And that's why in pageantry, what I love about it is my platform is STEM education for girls. Because when I went through college, 15, 20 years ago, there is not a lot of women going into this type of industry. And so the more that I can help women understand the benefits and why they should go into that, that is kind of my ultimate goal and help them through because the challenges that I went through, I want them to make sure that they are aware and that there's always the light at the end of the tunnel to help them get to that end point.
I just wanted to take 1 second from this great interview and talk about our sponsor of the week, Mid Atlantic Video and Photography Productions. No matter if you're planning a wedding, a special event, or you just need an amazing headshot, they are the team to get the job done. You can reach out to them at 443-422-3830. Again, that's 443-422-3830. Or you can just go right to their website at mavpp.com. Now let's get right back to the show and listen to this great interview. I can't agree more with you. I think that we need to encourage women to take more roles in science and math, and they need to be encouraged and not asked. Are you there? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yes. Uh huh.
Uh, and I definitely would love to have more women to be encouraged to go into those fields. I mean, there's so much more that we need to discover, and I mean,
Yeah.
I just watched a documentary about Mrs. Curry, the woman who founded the
Are you talking about Marie Curie?
yeah, it's a documentary that was talking about how she actually found that actual
The
item on the table, and actually figured out what was causing and how that power worked. So that's very important that women can play a major role, and women are as smart as men, and we need to cultivate all these groups of women that want to go in the field and not discourage them in any way. So,
Right.
um, so do you think that Texas is where you definitely want to work, because there's lots of opportunity there? I mean, especially in the solar panel, wind farming. I mean, it if they could just take off their blinders with all of the oil that they really produce, Texas is a perfect state that could really just be a just gold mine for this new power source, with especially with wind farming. And also, I mean, if you could get a solar panel on every person's roof in Texas, there would probably be enough energy to provide enough energy for the entire country. Based on the knowledge the research that I've read, that it's a very small amount of houses that would have to have solar panels at this point that would service as the amount of energy that we use in the course of a day. So there's so much opportunity in Texas.
Yeah. So the thing with solar is, solar works better in states that has a lot more sun.
Mm-hmm.
So Texas definitely is the state that is more suited for solar than Ohio would be. But the problem that people don't realize with solar is, in order to make solar effective, because the day, you only have so much sunlight during the day, and then it becomes nighttime, and so you have to have some kind of battery storage tied to it in order to reserve that energy. So right now, battery technology isn't quite there yet. And so you still need the electric grid to be able to utilize energy, during the times when you don't have the sunlight.
Right. Well, the good thing is that technology is continuing to grow. So
Right.
hopefully in the next 10 to 20 years, there'll be more changes, as also advances. I know that Elon is really working on a battery that has no liquids, a non-liquid battery. I think that's what it's called, and they're trying to eliminate the cobalt out of it as well. So there's going to be some major changes in the future. So it's all plus in the future. So back to the pageants. So you're giving up your title shortly. When is the actual national pageant?
Yeah, the actual date is September 6th.
Okay,
It's a Sunday. It's the Labor Day weekend Sunday.
well, that's exciting. So it's coming up really shortly.
It is.
What what's your outlook? Are you going to take a year off, or are you plotting your next national title? Like, well, what's your thought on the matter? Where do you think you want to go from here?
Yeah, so definitely as far as the pageantry path, I'm definitely going to take probably a couple of years as a break, just because I'm going to be moving, taking on a new job. I just need to focus my time and energy on that right now. But what's funny is, remember how you mentioned when I was a kid, I used to watch pageantry?
Mm-hmm.
The very first pageant that I ever watched was in 1988, and the winner was Miss or Courtney Gibbs from Fort Worth, Texas. And so I'm going to be moving to the Fort Worth, Texas area, so I think it would be kind of fun to compete as Mrs. Fort Worth at some point, so that it
That'd be
kind of,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
satisfied my childhood kind of dream when I was a kid. Yeah.
Well, you should also, with Facebook and everything, also, you should reach out to her and see if you guys can meet up for lunch or dinner, and hopefully you guys can build a good friendship, because I'm sure she's still around, and I'm sure she's still involved in the community. So it sounds like that would be a good friendship
Yeah,
to.
that would be interesting if I can actually meet her in person, because that's who I watched when I was a little kid. Yeah, that would be very interesting.
Hey, I always encourage you, um, as a wrestling fan, you always want to, you want a photo with your favorite wrestler. And then if you ever want to be a wrestler, then you take a photo with your favorite wrestler fan after you're a wrestler. So it could be the same way with you. You didn't get your before photo, but you could at least get your after photo, So,
Right.
yeah. So, and I'm sure there's so much things that you can learn from her. I mean, if she motivated you and she didn't even know it, who knows how many people that she motivated. And it just shows that, doing the right thing and working really hard does motivate other people. So you're going to be motivating other people, and hopefully someone will come to you one day and tell you how they really were motivated and just inspired by you. So hopefully that you get that moment too.
I would love that. I think part of most people's the reason why they want to compete is to be able to leave a little legacy behind that others can follow or are inspired to follow.
So if if you had a choice, what where do you want to go in the pageantry world? Have you been thinking about it? Like you said, you're going to take a couple years off, but do you know of a system that you've really thought really highly of and you want to?
So the first year I competed in 2015, I competed in two pageants system. I competed in captivating, and I competed in the America system.
Okay.
So I think my next road down, if I was going to do Mrs. Texas, is down the America system.
I sponsor the Maryland chapter, and I would say that the America would be a phenomenal system for you to be a part of, and I think you would probably really have fun. And all of the girls always talk about how the gifts are so wonderful at nationals. So I don't
That's
know
what
if
I
you,
hear.
yeah, yeah. If it's not for the crown, it's for the gifts in the room, right? I mean,
Yeah, I hear they come home with like a suitcase full of gifts because every state has to bring something unique.
yeah. Well, one of my colleagues was telling me that she came back to her room and she had um, butter knives that had her year in and year in title um, etched into them, and I'm like, okay,
Wow.
like, I mean, the, pretty fancy to have a butter knife, but like, I mean, that's so. I mean, it's cool, right? You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's super creative, whoever gave that
Right.
gift.
And then she's
Yeah.
like, one night we got a bag, and and it wasn't just a bag, it was like it was like a Louis Vuitton bag. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
wow.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, that's that sounds pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a guy, and I know how expensive that is when you buy it for a girl. So, I mean, that's that's a really big gift. So yeah, it all depends on like the system. Like I know, like if you want like your husband more involved, like international is big for that too. So it all depends on like what your mindset. How do you usually pick a system to compete in? Is it more based on what you've seen in the past and you've talked to your friends, or is it based on a feeling? Like how do you decide to
Yeah.
to make that investment and decision?
Yeah. So, because I am new to pageantry, I've only competed in three pageants ever, and they were all in my 30s. So, I want to talk about captivating, which is the system I'm a title holder
Yeah,
right now.
absolutely.
Yeah, there's a couple of reasons why I chose to come back to it. Is because one, as I mentioned before, the system's all about being being different, being captivating. It's not about being size, looks, any of that. But the second reason I really enjoy it was my husband gets involved. And he's an engineer like me, but he can sew. And
Oh,
so the very
cool.
first
Wow.
year, yeah, the very first year that I competed in it, there's a fun fashion portion. And so
Gotcha.
he and I designed my fun fashion wear, and of course, he being an electrical engineer, he lighted up the outfit. So when I walked out on stage,
No, really? That's
yes,
so cool. Did you
it
did,
changed color. It changed color as I'm walking on stage. And you know how you mentioned like the audience, cheering?
yes.
You could hear like they all gasp because it was so different. It was so unique. And then people who weren't even part of my cheering crowd were cheering for me because it was something so unique,
I mean, I've
so
never
different.
seen it. I've never seen anything like that, and I've had to sit through lots of pageants, and that's incredible. So kudos to you and your husband for being thinking outside the box. I mean, that's great. I love that idea.
Yeah, and so that was the first time I competed in captivating. The second time, which is last year that I won the title, I said to him, "We got to do this again. We got to go bigger." And so, 4 years ago, the technology was LEDs. So last year, he actually did fiber optic lights. So, he sewed my outfit and then put fiber optic lights
Wow.
underneath the gown. Yeah. So it's so much fun to be able to have him, support me and be fully involved and invested in every competition that I'm in.
That that's pretty so using it must have been looked like little stars with his fiber optics then. It must have looked incredible. Was it a white dress too, or what was the
It
color?
was it was a because the fun fashion last year, 2019, was peacock themed. So I'm trying to remember, the skirt on the outside was like a peacock feather, and he hand sewed every single feather on that skirt. But on the inside, he lined it with black fabric so that the fiber optic, you can see it better with the dark interior.
What a heart. He sounds like a keeper, right? Right?
he,
Because
he is.
not that many husbands are willing to like sew and like do that. He sounds like a great guy. It sounds
Yeah,
like he really
and
takes care of you. So that's great.
he actually ended up winning the Husband of the Year award through
I
the
think you
Captivating
should.
Pageant.
Yeah,
He
if there's a
did.
award, like if there's a award for that, absolutely. I mean, I don't see any other guys doing that. I mean, I know some pageant husbands that like do a great job with their videography or maybe do the photos, but like that sewing is like a such that's a talent. Like you can mess up a dress very easily, and that's a great talent. Wow.
Yeah.
So
Not only can he sew, but he takes it up a notch with all the technology inside his
exactly.
outfit.
I know. I
Yeah.
mean, God forbid he makes sure that your hemline's right. But he actually he makes sure that the thing sparkles and twists and turns. So
Right.
I just wanted to take one extra second and talk about our sponsor of the week, Mid Atlantic Video and Photography Production. No matter if you're planning a wedding and you need a wedding videographer, you're doing a music video, or doing a commercial, they are the team to get the job done. You can reach out to them at 443-422-3830. Again, that's 443-422-3830. Or you can go right to their website at mavpp.com. Now let's get right back to this great interview. Okay, so this is the part of the show where I let my lovely guest talk about whatever is on top of her mind. So, do we have any topics that we didn't talk about yet? I know we haven't talked about your platform. So, is there anything that is topical that's really important that we need to tell our lovely audience and let them know more about you?
No, I think like I kind of put a little bit of information here and there into it. So, um, fun fact about me though is I was on. Have you ever seen the show, the Travel Channel show Bizarre Food with Andrew Zimmern?
Yes, I love that show.
My family was aired on an episode for
Really?
that.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
So, how big is your family? Is it just the three of you, or do you have brothers
yeah.
and sisters?
I'm an only child, so
I
it's
am
just
too.
me and my parents. Oh, you are too. Okay,
Yes.
so my husband's only child too.
I know it's. I always get when I go on dates and I'm talking to the girl. Sometimes I get that weird comment from the girl like, "Oh, you come from an only family." Yeah.
Hey, it teaches us how to be more independent, right?
Yeah, totally. Like
Yeah.
I was privileged at least to have my grandma also live with us for a long time too. But I mean, no one was gonna take care of me in school. Like if there was a bully, I had to deal with it myself. Um, I mean,
Hmm.
and out on the playground, I was, if I was gonna make friends, I was gonna have my brother,
Right.
let me tag along. So, all of those things, I think that makes you a much better person in the real world because you understand that you really like in the real world, like it's dog eat dog. Like no one's really going to look out for you. And I know it's like a bad way and like it's a negative, but people don't look out for you, and people aren't going to like save you a job or, help you get a raise. You have to get your own raise, and you have to work really hard.
Right.
Um, and I, I know that we're not supposed to be that way. But like it is true. Like the way you get a raise is that you are the one that are the most excelling person. You stand out, you work really hard, you show initiative, you might ask a lot of questions. You're the one that's, you should ask a lot of questions. I if I have a kid, I definitely want them to be the one that's asking all the questions, because if they're asking questions, that's because they have a question. They have something they need to ask, like that. I mean, I don't want. Would never encourage anyone to be in the back of the room not asking questions. That means you're not engaged. So, I mean, do you have different thoughts on that? I mean, you married an only child. You are only child. Like, how do you feel on that?
Yeah, so it's funny because I don't know if you get this, Paul, but people always assume that we're lonely because we're only child. We
Yes.
don't have siblings, but what they don't know is you don't miss what you don't if you
Yeah.
don't
Right.
if you never had it,
I
right?
never, like, that doesn't ever come to my mind at all. So.
Right. Me too. My husband's the same way. So you never miss that. But what it teaches you is, how to interact, because you don't have siblings. So you learn how to play on your own. You learn how to do
Yes.
things on your own. You learn how to face society and the world more independently because you've never had, like you said, either an older brother or sister or even younger one to like be part of. You just enter the world as an independent person. And so I think that's the reason why for me, when I go out and I network, because networking is such a huge factor on career
Mm-hmm.
success. It's who
Yes.
you,
Absolutely.
it's
Yep.
not, it's not really about who you know, it's who knows you. And I always tell people that. And so to create that impression, you got to be vulnerable sometimes, put yourself out there to meet people. But people sometimes with a lot of siblings always have that kind of, that crutch of they have somebody there already. So it's harder for them to kind of force their way out there to meet new people and be a little bit more independent because they've never had to really do that growing up.
Have I don't know if if you feel the same way, but you were pointing out about like playing with toys. But I always felt that I was able to have a great imaginary. Like I could have, I'm born '82. You said you're going to turn 40, so you must be 81. So you're coming.
Yes.
So I'm the generation who grew up with GI Joes. So you're probably you're probably the ponytails, right, and Care Bears,
Yeah.
right. So
Yep.
I just remember like I could have like a huge war of like GI Joes and maybe Ninja Turtles, and I could fantasize that. But I don't see how if you had like a brother and sister, like they would have to be the other people. Where I could play both sides. Like I could be the bad guy, I could be the good guy, and then in the real world, I think that plays out really good because I feel like I can understand, well, this person is taking this deal because of this. Like I feel like I can negotiate deals better and also like
Mhm.
understand. Like, do you feel that way that you can see
You
both sides? Because
Yeah,
you
you bring up a really good point because, like you said, when you're playing by yourself, you tend to have to play both roles.
right.
With me, whether it's Barbie with Ken or Barbie with Skipper or whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, you're playing both roles. And so, I never thought about it that way, but you bring up a really good point is for us, we take on both perspective. We take on our perspective as the main character, and then we're able to take on the perspective of the other character, right?
Right.
And a lot of times when you don't play two roles like that, you tend to only take your perspective and have a harder time seeing the other person's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring up a really good point. I mean, that's so true. I just never thought of it that way.
I I just like the more I talk to my friends, especially about politics, I do have my left leaning. I'm independent, but I usually vote Democrat. But I could see myself voting for Republican on certain issues, not all issues, but I can see why. And I always say I have this one friend. She just seems so angry, and I always say to her, I'm like, why are you so angry? Like, I don't think anyone's holding you down, and like I can. And she comes from a family with a lot of brothers and sisters. So that comment to me, it sounds like she's never had to debate on both sides.
Hmm.
So I agree. Like I think that I feel very fortunate to be an only child because I was able to really cultivate both sides of that. So, and I think that, maybe that's one of the reasons why I love debate, and I should have taken debate both in high school and college because I probably would have really enjoyed that. So,
Yeah.
do you like that? Is that something when it comes to like the interview? If someone's interviewing you and they give you something
Mhm.
to debate, is that something you can really strive and do very well at?
So I pride myself that I am a natural public speaker. Debating is probably not an area I like to would really like enjoy. I am more of a motivational type speaker.
Okay.
I'm actually a national MC for my work, where every year they fly me out to a really cool location,
Well,
and
that's
I
really
MC.
awesome.
Yeah, and I MC over to like 10, 20,000 people. And so I feel like that's more of my niche, is more of either like the public speaking motivational type speaker. I do a lot of training for work, so I'm very comfortable presenting. Debating is probably not something that I enjoy as much than
Mhm.
just more just presenting publicly.
Well, that goes back to your comment where you said you want to be the CFO, and the CFO has to
Or CEO.
the CEO.
Yep.
It goes back to that. That's a leadership role where you have to be more middle of the road, and you have to lead from example and have a strategy to to lead that company in the right direction and be profitable. So, it totally makes sense. Did you necessarily have a mindset coming out of high school or college to be in that speaking position, or is that something you've grown into over the course of your lifetime?
I I feel like it probably wasn't something that I thought I wanted to do at a younger age, but I was kind of through opportunity and fate has brought me to it. You know, when I was in junior high, I was thrown into competitions or speech competition and did really well in it, but never thought about it as much. Then I went to high school and college and continued down that route just through meeting people. And so speech competitions, speech classes, preparation for that, I've always had through schooling. And the more that I did, the more I enjoyed. And so I think that sets me up more as I enter the career. And now I know that that's a strength and that's something I enjoy. So I like to be able to use that more going towards the future with my career.
Looking back in retrospect, do you think that's one of the key things that perhaps led you to win your title and also has led you to be so successful? I mean, every time you compete, you're placing very high, and eventually winning. So, do you think that's one of the things adding to the list of reason why you're doing so well?
100%. Yes. Um, like because public speaking and interviews, communication is more of my strength. In pageantry, that's 50% of your score. And I can tell you, I do not have the best walk because, that's not something that I grew up doing pageant all my life. So, walking on stage, posing on stage is something out of my comfort zone. And it's something that's new to me. So, even though I'm not the strongest, presence maybe on stage, but I hone in my public speaking. So, the on stage question is very important and the interview portion is also very important. And I think both of those have really helped leverage me to place higher positions and to winning the title.
Well, I really hope that our listeners got such a benefit from listening to this incredible episode, and I really appreciate you coming on and really telling us all about this incredible system. And I really hope that the word spreads because it's definitely got a great mark there and philosophy of promoting health and beauty and really promoting the person over like a certain criteria. And I really do love that thought and that sentimentality. So, and it definitely sounds like it's definitely motivated you and changed your life. So it definitely sounds like it made an impact on you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again for this opportunity to be on your podcast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The next time that you compete, next time you win a title, I would love for you to come on. So, and anytime you're on the East Coast, we should definitely work together. So,
All right, sounds like a plan.
Janet, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your system, captivating title. It's awesome to see more systems and have a system that's really promoting the person and not promoting a certain like cookie cutter. And I think that's really important, that we don't put everyone in a box, and if you don't fit a certain size or criteria, then you will never win. And I really do appreciate that you're really picking people that are outstanding, and just because they don't fit in another cookie cutter box, that they can excel in this pageant. And it's phenomenal that there's a avenue and a system like the Captivating Pageant that is out there that will provide them this opportunity, which is phenomenal. And I thank you for coming on the show, and congratulations on your year of service. I want to thank all of our listeners for continue listening to the podcast, as well as listening to our movie review show with my co-host Yvonne Carlos. And as always, thank you for your comments, your likes, your thumbs up, thumbs downs. I appreciate it. And as always, please stay tuned.